and members, the minority report is on the whole budget, and without wasting time, I'll begin with the background. Right Honorable Speaker and members, we are opposed to the approval of the 72.376 trillion 2025-2026 annual budget unless it is restructured as we propose to address the socio-economic challenges our country is facing. Right Honorable Speaker and members, even if the allocations in the budget were to address the socio-economic challenges, financing the budget through reckless borrowing will cause the country even more pain. To finance this budget, the NRM government wants to borrow 32.075 trillion because taxes, non-tax revenue and grants will only generate 40 trillion. The NRM government will then splash the taxes collected and borrowed money on luxury and distribute a big portion of it to President Museveni's friends. Moreover, the Constitution and Public Finance Management Act were not followed in preparation of this budget. I want to start with the sources of funds for the budget. The government intends to raise 34.051 trillion from taxes. This represents 47% of the total budget requirements. The government will also raise 3.246 trillion from non-tax sources, representing 4.4% of the total requirement. The taxes and fees correction together will give us 51.5% of the total amount of money we require to finance the budget. Our budget will also be financed by grants worth 2.745 trillion, which is 3.7% of our financial requirement. The rest, as I said earlier, 32.07 trillion, which is 44.3%, will be borrowed from foreign and domestic financial institutions. This is the physical deficit we face as a country. Madam Speaker, I have provided a table. I don't see it on the screen. I hope it can be summarizing what I have said. Tax correction is projected at 47%. Domestic borrowing, 21 trillion, 29.5%. External borrowing, 10.6 trillion, which is 14.7%, and grants, 2.7 trillion, which is 3.7%. And then non-tax revenue of 3.2, which is 4.4%. Who will lend us the 34 trillion? Minister of Finance on page 19 of the medium-term debt management strategy is warning Parliament that because of past global recessions, concessional lending has drastically reduced. Creditors are now focused on sustaining their own economies. The biggest borrowing, 68% therefore, will be from domestic commercial banks and several other funds. Only 32% of the borrowing will be from institutions such as World Bank, IMF, ADB, and other international funds. Only 9% of the loans to be procured for budget will be on concessional terms. Only 9%. 6% at semi-concessional and 16.7% at non-concessional and commercial terms. This government committed to restrict non-concessional commercial loans to financing infrastructure and self-financing projects through on-rent agreements that have the capacity of generating non-tax revenue to enable debt repayment. It is now contracting non-concessional loans to fund recurrent expenditure. Remember, last financial year, remember the loan of $789 million in 2023. Overborrowing from commercial banks is crowding out the private sector and is increasing interest payment almost beyond our reach. This financial year, we are paying 9.4 trillion in interest, not 9.4%. It's 9.4 trillion in interest to commercial banks, mainly, and 1.8 trillion interest to foreign lenders. In the next budget, interest payment will consume, it is now 11 trillion. Minister of Finance notes that borrowing from foreign sources poses a great risk on our reserves. To be safe, the Minister of Finance notes, maturing foreign debt should be kept at a certain percentage of our reserves. Right Honourable Speaker and honourable members, reflect on the debt burden you are creating before you say aye to the budget. That's why a report on public debt, grants, guarantees, and other financial liabilities is and was tabled together with the budget. Approving the budget means you have given the government a green light to borrow 32 trillion to finance next year's budget. You have in a way lost the right to complain when the Honourable Musasi begins to vent on traffic loan requests to Parliament. Minister of Finance itself on page 8 of the medium-term debt management strategy is complaining against expenditure requirements, against realistic revenue projections, which is raising the fiscal deficit and leading to more borrowing. The medium-term debt management strategy was also presented to this House. Interest charged on the money we are borrowing has significantly risen, and our currency continues to depreciate. This, Finance is reporting, has increased the borrowing costs and worsened Uganda's debt burden amidst reduced foreign exchange reserves. Madam Speaker, I want my tables to be screened because I need to make some explanations. I am on...
Do you have that report captured?
I actually submitted this report early in the morning.
Please capture it.
Will URA really correct the 34 trillion, the basis of which you are approving this budget? To finance the budget, Uganda Revenue Authority has now been given a 34 trillion target next financial year. This year, this current year, the target was 29.3 trillion. The taxes will be corrected as follows. If the tables were there, then I will be summarizing and I don't have to read everything. So these tables are too long. If I read them, we'll sleep here.
Let's have it uploaded.
So what do I...
Can we have the report uploaded?
No, No, the information is here, Honorable Siagi, you know it. My work was to bring it here. So what do I do, Madam Speaker? Because these tables are important.
Let's have them uploaded.
Yeah.